Ladies and gentlemen, good evening and thank you for joining our English news edition. Coming to you from Canal, Algérie, to the headlines. 10 lives and 42 injured is the toll of a deadly road accident in Naama province. Vigilance is more than ever before recommended to put an end to these tragedies. The Algerian humanitarian aid is received in Mauritania as a token of solidarity with this brotherly country hit recently by the floods. More successful operations carried out by the National People's Army to combat terrorism and organized crime, denoting the professionalism of our armed forces. And a severe social crisis is jolting Morocco, with more protests and strikes hitting large segments of the country. Good evening. Those were today's headlines. First in our news, tragedies continue on our roads. The last deadly accident occurred in Naama province and took the lives of 10 individuals, while 42 are injured. Sabrina Tafargani tells us more.
Road catastrophes are still claiming more human lives. A deadly accident took place in Naama province, linking Maghrar municipality to Bashar. Around 3 a.m. and 45 minutes, a passenger bus skidded, then overturned on the carriageway. A heavy death toll was registered. 10 people passed away. 42 others were injured. Civil defense elements intervened for the transportation of the injured people to Mohammed Boudiaf Hospital of Ain Safra and at the medical center of Maghrar.
The accident occurred after a passenger bus skidded, carrying 52 individuals. Sadly, 10 of them passed away. I would like to express my condolences to their family members. On the other hand, injured people were transferred to the hospital. 3 of them are under medical surveillance. If necessary, they would be dispatched to hospitals out of province. The local authorities, headed by the governor, who gave the adequate guidelines.
It should be mentioned that with each day passing, a deadly road accident happens, as proved by these alarming figures. 51 individuals passed away, along with 1,785 people injured in several road accidents across the national territory. This occurred only in the week of the 21st to the 27th of August, according to the Civil Defense report. The human factor remains the origin of this deadly tragedy. It will never be too much mentioned. Drivers must be vigilant in order to preserve the priceless human lives.
Prime Minister Ayman bin Abdulrahman chaired Wednesday a cabinet meeting held at the government palace, during which the government examined the following points. In the field of communication, the Minister of Communication presented a preliminary draft bill on the written press and electronic journalism, which falls within the framework of the embodiment of the directives of the President of the Republic, which he gave during the meeting of ministers held on April 24, 2022, regarding the development of a legal framework regulating the written press and the electronic press. In the field of agriculture and rural development, the Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development has submitted a draft executive decree specifying the tasks, composition, and functioning of the bodies of the National Veterinary System, whose task is to contribute to the organization and proper functioning of the profession. In the field of health, the Minister of Health has submitted a draft executive decree specifying how to prepare, evaluate, and update the health map. This health map, which is in fact the basis of the national health system, aims to organize, plan, and distribute all means, resources, and activities at the level of the national territory, taking into account the inventory and evaluation of existing capacities in the area of labor, employment, and social security, and in the context of the implementation implementation of the instructions of the President of the Republic to expand social coverage for the benefit of the national community abroad, the government has been studying a draft executive decree submitted by the Minister of Labour, Employment and Social Security, specifying the special conditions and modalities for the administrative affiliation of the national pension system for members of the national community abroad who engage in professional activity outside the national territory, as well as the rights and obligations. Finally, in the field of fisheries and fishing products, the government listened to a presentation by the Minister of Fisheries and Fisheries Products on the draft executive decree on fisheries cooperatives and aquaculture, which falls within the framework of the application of instructions of the President of the Republic to get rid of bureaucratic practices that hinder the economic recovery of the sector. The higher education academic year is scheduled for the 17th of September, as announced by the Ministry of Higher Education and Scientific Research, which will witness a return to in-person courses, particularly for essential modules, while resorting to the group system remains an option when needed. The ministry encourages in a note addressed to heads of academic institutions to extend the duration of courses until 6 p.m. with the usage of all university infrastructure with an aim to return to the normal rhythm. Reinforcing the brotherhood relations and in solidarity with Mauritania, more than 75 tons of humanitarian aid arrived to the capital Nouakchott, abroad military crafts belonging to the Algerian Air Forces. This move is meant to back Mauritania following the recent floods.
Two airplanes belonging to the National People's Army Air Forces carrying more than 75 tons of humanitarian aid arrived to Mauritania in solidarity following the recent floods which hit the country.
أود هنا أن أشكركم ومن خلالكم
On behalf of the Mauritanian government, I would like to thank you and the Algerian government and people as well for this generous move. We are used to the Algerian solidarity in all the circumstances witnessed by Mauritania. It's a proof of friendship and the fraternity linking the two countries. Pursuant to the instructions of both leaders, Mohamed Ould El Ghazouani and Abdelmajid Tebboune.
السيد محمد والشيخ الغزواني والسيد عبد المجيد تبون
الوقوف بجانب الشعب الموريتاني الشقيق.
In solidarity with the fraternal Mauritanian people and to alleviate the impacts of floods and the heavy rains, and in line with the instructions of the President to consolidate the two people's relationship.
من سيد رئيس الجمهورية السيد عبد المجيد تبون.
Humanitarian aid included basic foodstuffs, mattresses, tents and water pumps in support from Algeria to Mauritania, a step that reflects Algeria's principles meant to boost friendship and, among other lofty values, binding both Algeria and Mauritania.
In a resolution adopted unanimously, the United Nations Security Council commended Algeria's role in helping the Malian parties implement the agreement for peace and reconciliation in Mali stemming from the Algiers process. The resolution stressed the need for increased commitment of the members of the international mediation team for the implementation of the agreement, as well as the importance of the note that the special representative of the role of the special representative, the Secretary General for Mali, should continue to play in supporting the implementation of this central agreement. The latter has the full support of the Security Council, which intends, if necessary, to take action against anyone who hinders its implementation and the achievement of its objectives. As part of fighting terrorism and organized crime, units and detachments of the National People's Army carried out over the past week successful operations throughout the national territory, which denote the readiness, professionalism, and vigilance of our armed forces. Several attempts of introducing treated KIF were equally thwarted. 12 elements supporting terrorist groups were arrested in separate operations across the country, according to the operational report issued on Wednesday by the National Defense Ministry. The Coast Guards carried out, for their part, qualitative operations during which they averted attempts of illegal immigration and rescued 136 individuals on board small boats. Abroad, the return to social life in Morocco threatened by protests and strikes announced in various education cycles, a movement ignored by the Makhzen. However, the Social Front intends to assert its legitimate demands. More details with Rania Al-Bahri.
Moroccans working in different sectors continue to demonstrate against the increasingly difficult living conditions. This is the case of Sikimok company employees in Meknes province, who organized the protest to voice their dissatisfaction with the living conditions, difficult work, among the absence of social security coverage. They are also demonstrating against the high prices of daily products. They simply ask to work with dignity and with respect of their most basic rights. We want our rights. First of all, the social security. Secondly, the health insurance. We lost our colleague Amina, and now we lose another one named Hanan. And this is due to neglect, because if they found treatment and health coverage, they would have been with us today. We want insurance and social security. Many other actions of protest and strikes are announced as well in the sector of education, in the face of the indifference of the Makhzen and the government, of which continues to adopt the policy of deaf ears to the legitimate demands of professionals in the sector, which threatens the school and university resumption. The rise of the basic needs prices brings thousands of Moroccans out into the streets, voicing their anger and bad life. The situation becomes unbearable, a life that turns into a nightmare, not only because of the high cost of living, but also for drought and the lack of drinking water supply. The situation in Morocco is on the verge of explosion, and Moroccans are not ready to let it go.
The Makhzen leads an odious media campaign against Tunisia in its institutions following the participation of the Sahrawi president Ibrahim Ghali in the 8th edition of TICAD summit in Tunis, a reaction in contradiction of the status of the African Union. More details with Rania Al-Bahri again.
A Moroccan defamation campaign targeting Tunisia, its people and its institutions, is an immoral campaign tarnishing the reputation of this country after the participation of Sahrawi President Ibrahim Ghali in the 8th session of the Tokyo International Conference on African Development held in Tunis. This defamation is linked to the successive failures that Moroccan diplomacy has suffered recently in its quest to impose its expansionist vision, including resorting to lies. Tunisian journalists warned against the danger of the Moroccan media exploiting the visit of the Sahrawi Republic President Ibrahim Ghali to Tunisia to serve political agendas. They called on national political and civil forces to confront everyone with force, to not undermine the sovereignty of the Tunisian state. It's worth recalling some hard facts to prove the incoherent character of the Moroccan approach that this time took Tunisia as a target, as it hosted the summit, while Al Makhzen joined the African Union and agreed to attend the Sahrawi Arab Democratic Republic, which is a founding member, but also the King of Morocco, who participated in the European and African Union summits in Abidjan in 2017. Which was attended by President Ibrahim Ghali, who sat few steps away from the Moroccan monarch, just as Morocco also took part in the European and African Union summits in Brussels, in the presence of the Sahrawi president. Contradictions that reflect the irregular behavior of the Moroccan diplomacy that has dramatically lost its credibility.
And with that, we wrap up our news edition. Thank you for watching. Have a great night.